Hello and welcome back to the Musical Instrument Investigator. Today we're going to look at something a little bit different. Today we're on the website of MIMO International. Now MIMO stands for Musical Instrument Museums Online. So basically what this is it's a whole load of musical instrument museums around the world have got together to put up like their databases of instruments and photos and other information on one website. Now it's not every single musical instrument museum in the world, but there are quite a few that are taking part, and I think as the years kind of go on there are more and more museums taking part. I think I've known about this website maybe for about 10 years or so, and I think in that time there's certainly been a lot more museums added. So currently there are 64,165 instruments listed on this database. You can also kind of see which museums are participating, so you could look in a bit more detail where some of these museums are, mostly in Europe, because it did start off I think as European based, but it's now starting to get a bit more diverse. You can see it's in a lot of different languages as well. You can also search by kind of instrument makers as well, also instrument families. So you've got wind instrument, percussion, etc, etc. But if you go kind of home, then you kind of just start off with, you could browse every single instrument if you wanted just by going through, or you can also kind of go to different subdivisions, different places of production, dates of production, instrument maker, which museum. There's some audio and video resources. You can actually go into it quite granularly, if you really want to search for stuff. So for instance, let's kind of have a look at, let's go for something a bit different than we would normally. So let's go for bells. So we're now looking at different kind of types of bells. There's over 2,000 bells, so it's quite curious. So let's say, okay, I just want to look at African bells, so we can kind of look at African bells. Here we go, loads of pictures of African bells, and I want to look at data production. I want to look at something really early, so 1300 to 1400, and let's have a look at this and we can read about a bit about it. So this is West Africa, Mali, the Mopti region, the Djenne, I'm probably pronouncing that really bad. So Musical Instrument Museum there. I think that some of these links might be broken, I've noticed before, but we can give this a try. Yeah, I don't think this is working for some reason, but I think this is meant to be linking to a museum in Belgium. So some things have more details than others. So you see here that you got some measurements. There's not a great deal of information here. It's saying circa 1300 to 1400. So the information on this one is quite limited, but it really does depend on the museum and how much data that they have kind of uploaded. As you probably noticed, I've just quickly cut to another page here. One thing which does sometimes happen on this website is it can be quite difficult to search for terms that you think might flag something up, because it all depends on like the metadata, like what the museums have uploaded and kind of what descriptions they've put against it. So for instance, I was trying to look for like a lion-headed violin and I was kind of really struggling a bit, so I had to kind of redo it again. So perhaps for this time I'll try and find something a bit more likely to pull up results. So say Baroque violin. So here we have a couple of examples of Baroque violin. So if we see here, so this is anonymous kind of violin, France. It's from National Instrument Museum, has the inventory number, has a few kind of bits of information, but not so much. I think one thing to notice that sometimes these search terms don't always bring things up. So it is often better, I have noticed, that if you're looking for something like a kind of a Baroque violin, you might just want to go in manually to stringed instruments and then go kind of violin, And then if you're kind of looking for a certain region or a certain time, so we're looking for something a little bit older, so let's see if we've got any dates which might kind of correlate. Struggling a bit, but maybe if we hit 1700 or so, and we can start to, that's an interesting thing, so we can see that potentially we might be able to pull up some interesting instruments here. So interestingly, this looks like a bit of a Hardanger kind of fiddle head, but it is quite curious. So yeah, they are Hardanger, they're anonymous, Norway, and let's see if we can link through to the museum, because this is what it's supposed to do. Let's see, it's thinking about it. It's all a bit slow. We'll come back to that in a minute, but there's some information here in any case. So you can also search kind of manually like that. It can be a little bit, here we go, it's pulled up the information. You get a bit more detail here. So it's kind of materials: ivory and ebony, veneered with ivory and ebony, checkerboard, alternating bands with 4 longitudinal rectangles, etc., etc. Former Reviol collection, former Sodovari collection, on deposit by the Louvre at the Museum of Decorative Arts in 1908. So there's a bit of information, some kind of book references and things. So yeah, normally you would search in, click on an instrument, it would take you to a link to the actual museum's page. For some reason, the Belgian museum that we looked at earlier is not quite working, but most of the other ones I believe are. So sometimes if your search term is a bit too specific, then you do struggle a little bit. So this is an amazing resource if you want to look at musical instruments, but you do have to battle a little bit with the way that it operates. So here, I've just clicked on guitars, so we can look by maker, which could be interesting. So we could look at René Lecoq if we want to look at some of the romantic guitars, and straight away we see some interesting examples. Like, this is what we're looking for. This is this makes sense. We're looking for French kind of romantic guitars. This looks kind of, that's an extended kind of range one, but this makes sense what we're seeing. So that's potentially a better way to do some searching. Perhaps we could try that maybe for violins, if we can look at some makers. That may perhaps be a better way of searching violins. So obviously the problem with violins, if we're looking for a Baroque violin, a lot of instruments have been modified already, but let's have a look. Some instruments may not have anyone kind of against them, so it can be a little bit difficult to get some of that information. Are there any useful makers here? Not so much, but perhaps we can just see what is here under Antonio Stradivari and just see if there's anything interesting here. So this seems to be the Piccolo violin. There you go. Yep, the Antonio Stradivari Piccolo violin. So Cremona in Italy. And there's some information here. Looks like there's some additional pictures from the side and from the back. It will probably give you some references there, and obviously you have the information here. I'm not sure why that doesn't translate automatically to the language that you're kind of in, but there you go. That's an example there, and it's at the Museum for Musical Instruments in Leipzig, which is quite a famous museum. So yeah, here we can see, like, this is a really useful search tool. You need to explore a bit, like look around for different things like dates of production. Sometimes this is a bit, it's not necessarily 100%, because a lot of instruments, they don't know the exact date, so searching from date of production can be a bit difficult. Sometimes places can be a bit confused, places of origin or production, sometimes, you know, provenance and how kind of items are recorded in museums, and it's not always correct, so you need to definitely do a bit of investigation. But it is very interesting, especially, say for me, I have an interest in bows, so here is quite an interesting way that you can have a look at some bows. So say I'm really curious and I want to see some bows, some earlier bows, then I could click, say here, there's something's flagged up as being a bow from 1740 to 1760. So there's 12 results here. We can see that some of these look quite interesting. We click on this bow, so anonymous bow, Europe, Museum de la Musique in France. Once again, it's in French here. Total length 715. That's kind of useful. Looks like we can see the instrument in more detail on the actual museum website. We can pull up some images there, and it's fairly high definition. We can see here that it's a fluted stick there, ebony frog, and looks like an ivory button, so you know that's quite useful there. And we can click on the links. Yeah, and we can also look through the instrument makers. Let's see if there's any instrument makers beginning with Z. So yeah, let's look at there you go. There's Girolamo Zenti here, who seems to be a harpsichord maker. So it's a harpsichord from 1622. It's at the Cobb collection. So yeah, you can search by instrument makers as well. You can also search by the museums as well. So there's like a whole load of things. It's a very interesting resource. I'm not going to go on too long, but if you are interested in musical instruments, as we are on this channel in general, then you could do worse than kind of spending a few hours looking through some of the different interesting sections of MIMO. And like I said, it's not perfect. It can be a bit difficult, but if nothing else, you can find other museums you might not have known about, and you kind of, you know, explore and just see what's about. And there's so many interesting oddities of instruments here, you know, that you may never have seen before. So if you're really passionate about instruments, like I am, then this is a website that you could spend a lot of time on. So yeah, I just wanted to introduce people here to MIMO, to Musical Instrument Museums Online. A great resource. It's getting bigger and better all the time. Still has some work left to do. Some of the, like I said, some of the descriptions, the way things are added, are a little bit iffy. Sometimes can be a little bit difficult to search for things, but still, it's a really great resource and usually links you to the museum where the item comes from. So yeah, just check it out when you get a chance and let me know. Comment in the description if you've kind of interested in musical instruments, if you've gone on this website, if you found it useful, if you found it kind of difficult to use, or if you found any really interesting things that you never knew about before, just let me know. And until next time, ciao for now. Bye. Many thanks for tuning in to the Musical Instrument Investigator. I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, then please like, subscribe and turn on notifications, and watch out for the next video coming soon.